They told me I was too successful for my own brother's wedding, said I'd outshine the groom. So I smiled, nodded, and let them discover what happens when you bite the hand that literally pays for your fairy tale. My name is Elena Martinez, and I built my first business at 19 with nothing but a broken laptop and desperation. By 32, I was running a tech startup worth 8 figures. Success didn't come easy. It came from 16-hour days, failed ventures, and sleeping on friends' couches when rent money went to keeping my dreams alive. Growing up, we had nothing. Dad died when I was 12, leaving Mom with 2 kids and a mountain of medical debt. While other teenagers worried about prom dates, I was working 3 jobs to keep the lights on. My younger brother Marcus was only 8 then, still young enough to believe that poverty was temporary, that things would magically get better. I made sure they did get better. For him, anyway. Every promotion I earned, every business milestone I hit, I shared with my family. When Marcus wanted to go to college but couldn't afford it, I paid his tuition. When he couldn't find a job after graduation, I gave him spending money until he figured things out. When he wanted to move to a better apartment, I co-signed the lease. "You're too generous, Elena," Mom would say, but she never stopped accepting the help. Neither did Marcus. It became our family dynamic. Elena succeeds. Elena provides. Elena fixes everything. I didn't mind. Family is supposed to take care of each other, right? And honestly, I had more money than I knew what to do with. Sharing my success felt like the right thing to do, even when Marcus started taking it for granted. The taking for granted part started small. He'd forget to say thank you. He'd make comments about how easy business was for some people. Little digs that stung but weren't worth fighting over. I told myself he was just young, still finding his way. Then he met Sophia Blackwell. Sophia came from the kind of old money that built museums and had streets named after their great-grandfathers. Her family didn't just have wealth, they had pedigree, the kind that came with unspoken rules about who belonged in their circles and who didn't. Marcus was 28 when they met at some charity gala, an event he could only afford to attend because I'd bought his ticket. He came home that night talking about this amazing woman who was everything he'd ever wanted in a partner. "She's different, Elena," he gushed over Sunday dinner. "Educated, sophisticated, comes from a good family. She makes me want to be better." I should have heard the warning in those words, the implication that our family, his background, somehow wasn't good enough. But I was happy for him. Marcus had always struggled with confidence, especially around women. If this Sophia made him feel good about himself, then I supported it. The changes started slowly. Marcus began dressing differently, trading his casual style for expensive clothes that I suspected I was indirectly funding. He started using words like networking and connections, talking about Sophia's world like it was some exclusive club he was lucky to access. "You should meet her," he said one evening, 3 months into their relationship. "I think you'd really like each other." But weeks passed, and no introduction came. When I asked about it, Marcus would give vague responses about timing and busy schedules. I started to wonder if I was the one being kept at arm's length. The truth became clear at Mom's birthday dinner 6 months later. Marcus brought Sophia for the first time, and I watched my brother transform into someone I didn't recognize. He sat straighter, spoke differently, and when Mom started telling embarrassing childhood stories, I saw him physically cringe. "Marcus was such a little entrepreneur," Mom laughed, cutting her cake. "He used to follow Elena around, copying everything she did. Said he wanted to be rich like his big sister." The silence that followed was deafening. Sophia smiled politely, but her eyes flickered to Marcus with something that looked like disapproval. Marcus's face turned red, and he quickly changed the subject to something about wine pairings, knowledge he'd definitely acquired recently. That night, I heard him on the phone with Sophia as I was leaving Mom's house. "She exaggerates everything," he was saying, his voice carrying through the thin walls. "My family's always been dramatic about money. Elena's business isn't that big, and honestly, a lot of it was just luck and timing." I stood frozen on the front porch, my car keys cutting into my palm. Luck and timing? I'd built my company from nothing, worked myself to exhaustion, sacrificed relationships and sleep and peace of mind, And my own brother was downplaying it to impress his girlfriend? But I didn't confront him. I told myself I'd misunderstood, that he was just nervous about integrating his worlds. Family dynamics are complicated, and maybe Marcus needed time to figure out how to balance his old life with his new one. I gave him that time. I gave him space. And I kept writing the checks. When Marcus called me 8 months later, his voice was higher than usual, excited in a way I hadn't heard since he was a kid on Christmas morning. "Elena, I need to tell you something amazing," he said. "Sophia and I are engaged!" I screamed with joy, genuinely thrilled for him. My little brother was getting married to the woman he loved. It felt like a fairy tale ending to years of him struggling to find his place in the world. "Tell me everything," I demanded. "How did you propose? When's the wedding? Have you set a date?" "Well, that's actually why I'm calling," Marcus said, and his tone shifted slightly. "We want to have the wedding next spring, something really special. Sophia's family has expectations." The word expectations hung in the air like a lead balloon. "What kind of expectations?" I asked carefully. "Well, they're used to a certain level of presentation. Her sister's wedding was at the plaza. Her cousin had Vera Wang design her dress. This isn't just any wedding, Elena. This is Sophia's wedding." I could read between the lines. This was going to be expensive, very expensive. "How much are we talking about, Marcus?" "The thing is, with my job situation being what it is, and Sophia still finishing her master's degree," he trailed off, leaving the implication hanging. Marcus had been between opportunities for the better part of 2 years, living off a combination of part-time work and what I now realized was probably ongoing financial support from me. The checks I sent for emergencies and temporary help had become so regular I'd stopped tracking them. "You need help with the wedding," I said. It wasn't a question. I hate asking, Elena. I really do. But this is important. This is my future wife, my chance at the life I want. And I know you've always been generous with family. "How much, Marcus?" $85,000. I nearly dropped the phone. $85,000 for one day, for one party. That was more than most people made in 2 years, more than our entire family had ever spent on anything. That's a lot of money, Marcus. I know it is. But Sophia's family is paying for some things too, and we've cut costs wherever we can. The venue alone is $30,000, and that's with a family discount because Sophia's aunt knows the owner. Everything else is just what weddings cost in their world. Their world. There it was again, that subtle separation between us and them, between where Marcus came from and where he wanted to go. I found myself saying yes before I'd fully processed the request. Maybe it was the excitement in his voice, or the way he called it his chance at the life he wanted. Maybe it was 20 years of being the sister who fixed things, who made dreams possible with nothing but hard work and an open checkbook. "Okay," I said. "I'll help you." The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought we'd been disconnected. "Elena, are you serious? You'll really do this?" "You're my brother," I said simply. "Of course I'll do this." He started crying then, thanking me over and over, promising he'd pay me back someday when his business took off. I told him not to worry about it, that family didn't keep score. I should have kept score. Over the next 6 months, I wrote check after check: venue deposit, catering deposit, floral arrangements, photography package, videography, band, dress alterations, honeymoon flights. Every week brought a new, small expense that needed covering, usually prefaced with, "Sophia's family expects," or "It's just the way things are done." But something else was happening during those 6 months, something I didn't want to acknowledge. Marcus was pulling away. Our weekly dinners became monthly, then sporadic. When I called, he was always busy with wedding planning or time with Sophia's family. When we did see each other, he seemed uncomfortable, like he was performing a role instead of just being my brother. The final straw came during what I thought was a casual lunch to discuss final wedding details. We met at an upscale restaurant in Sophia's neighborhood, the kind of place where appetizers cost more than my family used to spend on groceries for a week. So the final head count is locked in, Marcus said, scrolling through his phone instead of looking at me. 215 guests. Wow, that's a lot of people. I can't wait to meet everyone. Marcus looked up then, and something flickered across his face. Discomfort. Guilt. Fear. Actually, Elena, there's something I need to talk to you about. My stomach dropped. In my experience, nothing good ever followed those words. The guest list has been challenging. Sophia's family has strong feelings about keeping the wedding intimate, people who really know the couple well. Okay, I said slowly, but I'm family. How much more intimate can you get? Marcus set down his phone and finally met my eyes. What I saw there wasn't the gratitude I expected or even nervousness about wedding planning stress. It was shame, and something harder to name. Resentment, maybe. The thing is, Sophia's family has met you a few times now, and they think you might be uncomfortable in that environment. What environment? It's your wedding. Elena, you have to understand. These people come from a certain background. They have expectations about presentation, about who fits in with their social circle. And honestly, your success, your business, it's amazing, don't get me wrong, but it's different from what they're used to. I stared at my brother, this man I'd raised as much as our mother had, trying to process what he was saying. You're telling me I don't fit in with your wife's family because I'm successful? Not because you're successful, Marcus said quickly, because of how you're successful. Your business, your style, the way you talk about money. It's very obvious. Sophia's family comes from a world where wealth is quiet, understated. They're worried that having you there might make things awkward. The restaurant suddenly felt too hot, too bright, too loud. I could hear every conversation around us, every clink of silverware, every laugh from the bar area. But I couldn't seem to find my own voice. Marcus, I said finally, are you telling me I'm not invited to your wedding? He couldn't meet my eyes again. I think it would be better for everyone if you sat this one out. Just the ceremony part. Maybe we can have a separate celebration later. Just family. The words hit me like a physical blow. $85,000. Months of planning, of excitement, of imagining myself watching my little brother marry the woman he loved. And now I was too successful, too obvious, too uncomfortable for his new family. Their excuse? I heard myself ask, my voice strangely calm. What's their excuse for why the sister who paid for the entire wedding won't be there? Marcus flinched. It's not an excuse, Elena. It's just, you outshine people. You can't help it. It's who you are. But on this one day, Sophia needs to be the center of attention. She needs to feel like the most important woman in the room. And she can't feel that way if I'm there. You're intimidating, Elena. You always have been. Even when we were kids, everyone always compared me to you, and I always came up short. Sophia's family sees that dynamic, and they don't want their daughter feeling that way on her wedding day. I sat back in my chair, pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. This wasn't about Sophia's family's comfort. This was about Marcus's shame. About a little boy who'd grown up in his successful sister's shadow and finally found a way to step out of it. By erasing me completely. So let me understand this, I said, my voice still eerily calm. I pay for your entire wedding, every flower, every photograph, every bite of food your guests will eat. But I'm not invited because my presence might remind people that you come from the family that raised you? Elena, please don't make this harder than it has to be. Harder than it has to be? The calm was cracking now, anger seeping through like water through stone. Marcus, I've spent the last 20 years making sure nothing was ever hard for you. I put you through college, helped with your rent, bought your groceries when you were between jobs. I funded your entire relationship with this woman, and now you're telling me I'm too embarrassing to attend the wedding I paid for. It's not about embarrassment. Then what is it about? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you took everything I had to give and then decided I wasn't good enough to be part of the life my money bought you. Marcus's face was red now, whether from shame or anger, I couldn't tell. You want to know the truth? Fine. Yes, you're embarrassing. You're loud and flashy, and you talk about money like it's nothing because it is nothing to you now. You have no idea what it's like to be around Sophia's family, trying to prove you belong, when your sister shows up talking about her little startup that's worth millions. Everything has always been easy for you, Elena. Can't I have this one thing be easy for me? The words hung in the air between us like poison gas. Easy. 20 years of sacrifice, of working myself to exhaustion, of choosing his needs over my own again and again, and he thought it had all been easy. I stood up slowly, my movements deliberate and calm. I placed my napkin on the table, picked up my purse, and looked down at my brother, this stranger wearing my little brother's face. "You're right, Marcus," I said quietly. "You should have this day be easy for you. In fact, I'm going to make sure everything about your wedding is exactly as easy as you deserve." I turned and walked away, leaving him sitting alone at the table with the check and his choices. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't call Marcus back when he started texting me frantically 20 minutes after I left the restaurant. Instead, I drove home in perfect silence, my mind crystal clear for the first time in months. For 20 years, I'd been the family fixer, the one who swooped in with solutions, checkbooks, and endless patience for people who mistook my generosity for weakness. But sitting in my car outside my house, I realized something profound. I was done being weak. I walked into my home office and opened my laptop. Every payment I'd made for Marcus's wedding was documented, not because I didn't trust him, but because successful businesses require meticulous record-keeping. Venue deposits, catering advances, floral arrangements, photography packages, band bookings, dress fittings, honeymoon flights. $85,000 in total, spread across 6 months of helping family. But here's what Marcus never bothered to learn about me during all those years of taking my money. I hadn't built my business by being careless with contracts. Every vendor payment had been made through my business accounts, with clear terms about cancellation policies and refund structures. Every receipt was saved, every communication documented. More importantly, every contract listed me as the responsible party for payment. I picked up my phone and started making calls. "Martinez Enterprises, this is Elena Martinez. I need to speak with someone about canceling several upcoming events due to a family emergency." The wedding planner was first. Sarah Chen had been handling the coordination for what she kept calling the Martinez Blackwell celebration. I'd met with her twice, always with Marcus and Sophia, always introduced as the sister who's helping with expenses. Sarah had been nothing but professional, but I could see the calculations behind her eyes, trying to figure out exactly how much help the successful sister was providing. "Ms. Martinez, I'm so sorry to hear about your emergency," Sarah said when I explained I needed to cancel everything. "Unfortunately, with less than 48 hours' notice, most vendors will retain their deposits. Are you sure there's no way to postpone instead of cancel?" "I'm quite sure," I said calmly. "Please proceed with all cancellations immediately. I'll handle any financial consequences." "Of course, I'll need to reach out to Marcus and Sophia to confirm." "No need," I interrupted. "I'm the account holder for all vendor contracts. My authorization is sufficient." There was a pause. "Ms. Martinez, I want to make sure I understand correctly. You're canceling your brother's wedding?" "I'm canceling events that I contracted and paid for. What my brother chooses to do about his wedding is entirely up to him." The venue was next. $30,000 for the Rosewood Manor, a historic estate in the Hamptons that looked like something from a fairy tale. I'd toured it with Marcus and Sophia 3 months earlier, watching Sophia's eyes light up as she imagined herself gliding down the grand staircase in her $5,000 dress. "I need to cancel the Martinez Blackwell event scheduled for this Saturday," I told the events manager. "Oh my goodness, is everything all right? That's such short notice." "Family emergency. I understand there will be financial penalties." "Well, according to our contract, with less than 72 hours' notice, we retain the full deposit and half of the remaining balance. That would be $42,000 total." "Understood. Please proceed with the cancellation." The caterer was more difficult. Giuseppe's had been preparing food for 215 guests. a custom menu that Sophia had spent weeks perfecting. When I called to cancel, the owner himself got on the phone. "Ms. Martinez, this is impossible. We have ordered special ingredients, hired extra staff, prepared everything. The food is already in preparation." "I understand, and I apologize for the inconvenience. I'll pay whatever cancellation fees are outlined in our contract." "It's not about fees. This is a reputation matter. The Blackwell family, they are important clients. How do we explain that there is no food for their daughter's wedding?" "That's not my concern," I said simply. "I'm only responsible for canceling services I contracted. How the family handles their guests is up to them." One by one, I called every vendor. The florist who'd spent 2 weeks creating Sophia's Garden Paradise centerpieces. The photographer who'd rearranged his entire weekend to capture every moment. The band that had learned special songs for their first dance. The transportation company that was supposed to provide luxury cars for the wedding party. Each conversation followed the same pattern. Shock, confusion, attempts to reach Marcus or Sophia for confirmation, and finally, reluctant acceptance when they realized I was indeed the person with legal authority to cancel. By the time I finished the last call, it was nearly 10 p.m. My phone had been buzzing constantly with texts and missed calls from Marcus, but I'd turned off notifications hours ago. There would be time to deal with his panic later. Right now, I was experiencing something I hadn't felt in years: peace. For the first time since I was 12 years old, I wasn't responsible for fixing anyone else's problems. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my terrace, looking out at the city lights. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. My phone rang at 6:30 in the morning. Marcus, of course. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Voicemail. The third time I answered. "Elena, what the hell did you do?" His voice was hoarse, desperate. "Good morning to you too, Marcus." "Don't play games with me. Sarah called at midnight saying everything was canceled. The venue, the food, the flowers, everything. What did you do?" "I handled a family emergency," I said calmly, sipping my morning coffee. "I had to liquidate some assets immediately, which meant canceling several upcoming expenses." "This is my wedding day, Elena. My wedding is today." "No, Marcus. Your wedding was supposed to be today. But since I wasn't invited, I assumed you had alternative arrangements." The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Then quietly, "Elena, please. I'll fix this. I'll talk to Sophia's family. I'll make them understand." "Understand what? That you were lying when you told them your family supported your marriage? That you've been living off money from the sister you were too ashamed to invite?" "It wasn't like that." "It was exactly like that, Marcus. You took my money, used it to buy your way into a world that wouldn't accept you, and then threw me away when I became inconvenient to your image." "Elena, I'm begging you, please, call them back. Fix this. I'll pay you back. I swear." "With what money, Marcus? You don't have a job. You don't have savings. You don't even have a credit card that isn't maxed out. The only reason you could afford this wedding is because I paid for it, and now I haven't." I could hear him crying. My little brother who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who I'd taught to ride a bike and helped with homework and protected from bullies. For a moment, my resolve wavered. Then I remembered his words from yesterday. "Everything has always been easy for you, Elena." "The vendors will work with you if you can provide immediate payment," I said. "Most of them are willing to reinstate services if you can cover the cancellation fees plus the original costs. You're looking at about $120,000 total." "Elena, you know I don't have that kind of money." "Then I suggest you call Sophia's family. I'm sure people from their world can handle a simple financial emergency." I hung up and turned off my phone. The next 24 hours were blissfully quiet. I spent Saturday, what should have been Marcus's wedding day, hiking in the mountains, something I hadn't done in months because I'd been too busy managing other people's crises. I turned my phone back on Sunday evening to find 47 missed calls and 63 text messages. Most were from Marcus, ranging from desperate pleading to angry accusations. A few were from my mother, who'd apparently learned about the situation when she arrived at the Rosewood Manor to find it dark and empty. But the messages that interested me most were from numbers I didn't recognize. "This is Jennifer Blackwell, Sophia's mother. I think there's been a misunderstanding that we need to discuss. Elena, this is David Chen, Marcus's friend from college. I was supposed to be in the wedding. What happened? Ms. Martinez, this is Rebecca Walsh from the Southampton Social Register. I'd like to speak with you about the events of yesterday. The story was spreading. In Sophia's social circle, where reputation was currency and scandal was social death, the collapse of a wedding was major news, especially when that collapse involved financial impropriety and family drama. I called my mother first. "Elena Marie Martinez, what have you done?" she said instead of hello. "I protected myself from people who were using me, Mom." "Marcus is your brother. Family doesn't abandon each other." "You're right," I said calmly. "Family doesn't abandon each other. So where were you when Marcus decided I wasn't good enough to attend his wedding? Where was the family loyalty when he told me I was too embarrassing to be seen with his new relatives?" Silence. "I raised that boy like he was my own son," I continued. "I put him through college, supported him through every failure, funded his dreams, and asked for nothing in return except basic respect. He couldn't even give me that. Elena, he was just nervous about fitting in." "Mom, he told me I was too successful to attend the wedding I paid for. He said I was loud and flashy and embarrassing. After 20 years of sacrificing for him, he threw me away the moment it became convenient. But canceling everything? On his wedding day? Elena, that's cruel. What's cruel is taking someone's money while treating them like they're beneath you. What's cruel is letting your family think you're successful while your sister pays for everything behind the scenes. What's cruel is prioritizing strangers over the people who've loved you your entire life." My mother was quiet for a long time. Finally, "What happens now?" "Now Marcus learns what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you, and I learn what it feels like to stop being everyone's backup plan." The real fallout began Monday morning. I arrived at my office to find my assistant looking worried. "Elena, there are several reporters trying to reach you. Something about a wedding scandal? And Jennifer Blackwell has called 3 times." I'd underestimated how quickly news travels in elite social circles. By Monday afternoon, the story had reached the society pages. "Blackwell wedding canceled amid family financial dispute." The article was carefully worded to avoid libel, but the implications were clear. The groom's family had financial problems, there had been deception about who was paying for what, and the bride's family was re-evaluating their position. Jennifer Blackwell finally reached me Tuesday morning. "Ms. Martinez, I think we need to speak frankly," she said without preamble. "This situation has become quite embarrassing for my family." "I imagine it has," I replied, "though I'm not sure why you're calling me." "Because you're the one who created this mess by canceling everything at the last minute." "Mrs. Blackwell, I canceled services that I contracted and paid for. I wasn't aware that constituted creating a mess for your family." "Don't play innocent with me. You knew exactly what would happen when you pulled your funding. You knew it would humiliate my daughter and destroy her wedding." "Actually, I knew it would reveal the truth about who was really paying for your daughter's fairy tale. I assumed that once the truth came out, your family would simply handle the expenses themselves." There was a long pause. "We were never told that Marcus's family was covering the entire cost." "I'm not Marcus's family, Mrs. Blackwell. I'm Marcus's sister, and I was specifically told I wasn't welcome at the wedding because I don't fit in with your social circle." Another pause, longer this time. "I see. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like your family was happy to accept money from someone you considered beneath you, as long as that person stayed invisible." "Ms. Martinez, surely we can resolve this misunderstanding?" "There's no misunderstanding, Mrs. Blackwell. Your future son-in-law took my money to buy his way into your world, then tried to erase me when I became inconvenient to his image. The only thing I'm resolving is my involvement in situations where I'm not wanted." I hung up and instructed my assistant to refer any future calls from the Blackwell family to my attorney. The final piece of the puzzle came Thursday morning when Marcus showed up at my office. Security called to ask if I wanted to see him. I almost said no, but curiosity won. He looked terrible. Unshaven, hollow-eyed, wearing the same clothes he'd probably slept in. This wasn't the polished version of my brother that had emerged during his relationship with Sophia. "Elena, please, just give me 5 minutes." I let him into my office but didn't invite him to sit. "It's over," he said without preamble. "Sophia broke up with me. Her family wants nothing to do with me. I lost my apartment because I couldn't make rent without your help. I have nothing." I waited. "I know I hurt you. I know I was ungrateful and selfish and stupid, but you're my sister, Elena. You're all the family I have left." "I was all the family you had left on Saturday, too," I said quietly. "But that didn't stop you from throwing me away. I made a mistake. I was trying so hard to fit in, to be good enough for her world, that I lost sight of what really mattered. Can't you forgive me? Can't we fix this?" For a moment, looking at my broken little brother, I felt the old familiar urge to swoop in and fix everything, to write the checks, make the calls, smooth over the problems until his life was comfortable again. Then I remembered his words. "Everything has always been easy for you, Elena." "Marcus, do you know what the hardest part of the last 20 years has been?" He shook his head. "It wasn't building my business or making money or dealing with stress. It was watching you take everything I gave you and never once consider that it cost me something to give it. Not money. I had plenty of that. But time, energy, dreams I put on hold, relationships I didn't pursue because I was always managing your crises. Elena, you called my success easy. Do you have any idea what that felt like? I worked 80-hour weeks for a decade to build what I have. I sacrificed everything, sleep, health, love, friendships, to create a life where I could take care of the people I loved, and you dismissed it as luck and timing. I didn't mean—" "You meant every word, because in your mind, I was never a person with my own struggles and dreams. I was just a resource, an ATM with a family connection. And when that resource became inconvenient to your image, you discarded it without a second thought." Marcus was crying now, but I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no urge to comfort. Just a strange, peaceful emptiness. "So what happens now?" he asked. "Now you figure out your own life. You get a job, pay your own bills, solve your own problems. You become the adult you should have been 10 years ago. And us? Our relationship?" I looked at this man, my brother, the child I'd helped raise, the person I'd loved more than anyone in the world, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. There is no us, Marcus. There's you, and there's me, and there's 20 years of history that can't be undone. But there's no relationship anymore. You burned that bridge when you decided I wasn't good enough to witness the life my money bought you. Elena, please. I want you to leave now, and I don't want you to contact me again. He stared at me for a long moment, maybe hoping to see some crack in my resolve. But I'd spent 4 days thinking about this moment, and I knew exactly who I was now, someone who didn't accept being treated as disposable. After he left, I sat in my office looking out at the city I'd conquered through sheer force of will. For the first time in 20 years, I had no family obligations, no one else's crisis to manage, no one's dreams to fund except my own. It felt like freedom. 3 months later, I learned through mutual acquaintances that Marcus had moved back in with our mother and was working at a car dealership. Sophia had married someone else, a banker from her parents' social circle whose family credentials were apparently more acceptable. The wedding was small, private, and entirely funded by people who actually wanted to be there. I sent them a very expensive gift from Tiffany's, along with a card that read, "Wishing you all the happiness money can't buy." Then I booked a month-long trip to Europe, something I'd been promising myself for years, but never had time for because I was always managing someone else's emergency. In Paris, sitting at a cafe watching the world go by, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "I heard what happened with your brother. I'm sorry you went through that, but I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Some bridges are worth burning if they were built on disrespect. Sarah, your wedding planner." I smiled and ordered another coffee. For the first time in my adult life, I was exactly where I wanted to be, with exactly the people who wanted me there. Which, at that moment, was just me. and that was more than enough.